welcome. Name's Alexis Disventure Camp, and you've read the title. Today, it'll be the trailer analysis for Disventure Camp Season 4, Episode 4. Before we begin, I have a few things to know. Background footage and screenshots are owned by Anastasia Cartoons, not me. By the time this video comes out, the episode is probably out on Patreon. No, I don't have Patreon. I'm broke. Therefore, this is only done again using the prior 3 episodes and the trailer knowledge or whatever else bonus content has been released. These are my personal analysis of these scenes. If you have different, that's completely fine. I know there are scenes from the season trailer that correlate to this episode right here, or at least this trailer per se. However, they're all pretty much in this same trailer, in the Season 4, Episode 4 trailer, so I'm just not going to bother with that. So just to maintain organization and simplicity for this one are the trailer analysis predictions, who's going next, and the conclusion. Alrighty, with all that out of the way, let's get this started.
Interrupting you and Ivy?
What are you talking about?
Come on, man. You know.
Per usual, I go in sequential order of how I think it happens in the episode, beginning right from the elimination, returning it the red team members, focused on particular Hannah sitting sadly, upset at Amelia's departure, Tristan feeling guilty for voting off Amelia. Honestly, I think this will pretty much happen in any scenario where Tristan has to vote. It's gonna make serious game moves hard down the line for them. Anyways, Benji gets a confessional. We're clearly upset. My guess is one of 2 options. A, from his dialogue, it could be the fact he was in the minority of this vote and wanting to be in the majority of the vote moving forward. B, less likely, it could be the fact he's still upset about how Spencer didn't clue him into the vote. Remember, previously in episode 3, he commented on the fact of why Spencer wouldn't talk to him about the elimination first and foremost. This ends off the night scenes as we flip straight into the morning of. I'm assuming the focus stays on red team, because why not? Spencer had just woken up as Diego had finished harvesting foods for the team. It could have been Zade who just brought it back, but given Diego's strong environmental abilities, I think differently there. Handing over the ripest mango, I think. Spencer thanks him as Zade watches, probably wanting the mango instead. Maybe for making a dish? Jade is confuzzled, curious, and yet thinking to talk to Spencer about the situation, which they do right afterwards. The secondary objective was also to show that Spencer found the immunity idol, but I digress. It could be mostly focused on that, however, Jade's expression and not only the dialogue makes me think differently. My guess is how strategically this dynamic that Diego and Spencer won could lay out for the both of them moving forward. Given again, most of Jade and Spencer's discussions are always strictly strategic, and Jade's main focus has always been strategy. Nothing more or less, really. As Jade leaves and Spencer enjoys his mango, Benji watches most, if not all, the conversation behind a tree. Not only would he know of the idol's existence, which he could use for blackmail, or to get him onto his side in Hannah's, which is huge, and he would know about the Diego situation. Definitely a bit more iffy on this one, but he could also use that to his advantage to tear the two apart, ruining a close duo that could be a threat. Ultimately, both of these are more on the villainous side, but I mean, they'd work. Ultimately, as much as I'm not that big of a fan of Benji's character, I do have faith that he can use this intel to have a useful strategy for himself, and also gain a plot and make Benji's sweep become very real. Switching to Ivy and Zade, the two are just playing, having fun splashing, chasing one another, etc., making the most of their time in the ocean. While this happens, Zade notices a crab, deciding to try and catch it, quote unquote. I would think for the food it would provide for them. As soon as he begins, Tristan arrives from whatever they were doing before, with a stick for assistance with the grab situation. I would also like to comment on the voice lines. Tristan is suggesting Zade might like Ivy as more than a friend, or at least developing feelings, which makes me think that Tristan will spend a lot of time as a role here, a ring person, to help Zade and Ivy get together down the line, and that is honestly so sweet to me if true. I'm a personal Ivy shipper, so I'm winning here regardless. I do hope that if this does become the case for Tristan does eventually have other people and other plot lines for themselves. Blue Team gets mentioned for the first time as the 3 remaining guides are discussing plans for the future. Ted, worried about the 3v5, in his words, 6? Huh? Either way, Richard motivates the three of them as we get to see Logan bonding with the girls. My assumption is this was done in order to gain Linda as an ally. Ted knows that Linda, deep down, has her doubts, and using Logan being viewed as a fifth member rather than her would give them tied odds, each leading to a 4v4. It is entirely possible to win a tiebreaker against the other side. Really, it's brilliant. I say that in quotes if it succeeds, because at least it saves them from instantly a loss to an actual tiebreaker, which it honestly seems like it will be a success. Still, I am intrigued on the Logan and Anastasia dynamic in particular, given how, honestly, she's just usually yelling or upset at somebody. If that somebody is Marissa, by the way, I adore that ship too. I adore that dynamic. It's just, yes! Okay, back on topic. Further to support the original Linda theory is her confessional discussing Logan and the girls now getting along. One line, yeah, stay. With all the morning scenes covered, and to the challenge. Given the teams are even, nobody sits out. We can also assume who is the prey and the hunters from the footage. Red team's hunters are Diego, Ivy, Hannah, and Jade, and for the prey it is Spencer, Benji, Tristan, and Zade. For blue team, we don't get to see much of anybody of the prey except for Richard. However, we do get to see all the hunters. We can use this as the process of elimination, sort of how Jade was figured out to be the hunter for the red team. So the hunters for blue again are Marissa, Isabel, Natalia, and Ted, and the prey are Anastasia, Richard, Linda, and Logan. Due to Trevor's lines, we also know the challenge basis. Hunters and prey are randomly selected evenly. Hunters must hit the prey using their arrows to eliminate them. Last prey standing on the team will win it, or win immunity. Something really cool I find about this challenge in particular is of how many locations it seems to take place over, and I appreciate how much more this one's carnival themed. I think it's cool. I'm going to breeze quickly by through the highlights of the challenge scenes because to me there is only so much to predict and analyze here. Number 1, many of the prey are hiding, which makes me think this entire game is more of an advanced hide and seek, which seems pretty fun throughout. Also wonder if they'll have to keep moving locations if this is the case, because if many are hiding, they'll probably stick to wherever they found to hide for as long as they possibly can. If not, it'll likely stick to the hunter, just duos or dynamics over there. Speaking of which, every hunter seems like they have somebody they can somewhat stick to or at least interact with during the challenge. For example, Hannah and Diego. I am so grateful for this for Diego, oh my gosh! As his main focus entirely so far has been to be infatuated with Spencer, so this can allow for some development. It could also be really interesting for Hannah depending on how it's utilized. Isabel and Natalia, local duo. Ivy and Jade, I would assume here? Seems like such an intriguing dynamic if it does turn out to be true. And Marissa, Ted? Now that's one interesting pairing to see interact, and something I do hope that happens in the future, especially given what had happened the previous elimination. Given Richard and Linda bump into one another, I would assume this is where their rivalry, as shown in the intro, begins, along with the three-person alliance, as also implied or shown in the intro. Maybe? Again, all of this is from the intro's impressions. I just find it interesting because I like analyzing the intro and seeing how that correlates into the actual season. And then this is more going to be just a bullet list here, but loads of arrow shooting, running, Derek's entertainment, and Trevor's watching, I don't know, fear and absolute chaos. From what we know of who gets shot so far, at least in the trailer, Benji, season trailer, Tristan, if they're making an extremely dramatic, quote-unquote, death scene, they absolutely got hit with that paintball arrow. You can't convince me otherwise. We don't get to see much of the blue team's perspectives in terms of the prey, except for Richard, which is really just him hiding and sneaking around mostly. Overall, a cool challenge. It seems like it would be a fun episode throughout. With most, if not all of these scenes analyzed, let's move right onto who's going next.
Interrupting you and Ivy?
What are you talking about?
Come on, man. You know.
My personal theory is that this is going to be a non-elimination round. Assuming that there's one returnee this season, 16 eliminations would have to happen for a final 3. This is a 26 episode season, meaning at least 10 non-eliminations. Nonetheless, if somebody were to go on either teams, here's how I believe it would go. Red team is easy, Benji. Even if he has that data from earlier and could use it beneficially, it could also severely backfire on him, depending how he decides to use that type of information. Additionally, his social prowess is non-existent. He's also in the minority in terms of the alliance. Given he's on the outs, he makes him a much easier target, and out of Hannah or him, if they had to decide who's going home, yeah, it's a no-brainer. He also has the least amount of plot compared to the others on the red team. I don't see a point in keeping him over the others on red team either. Anyways, on the others though, then Diego and Spencer have something called plot armor, and their dynamic will probably last for at least the entire season. The trio also has a lot of power in terms of votes. Ivy and Zade need more time to flesh out whatever their relationship's gonna be. And Tristan is Tristan. Jade has an idol and has done the smartest decision of anybody ever created in the Disventure Camp universe, sticking to Spencer in terms of characters. Hannah is more capable of the two as previously mentioned, at least from what we've seen. Benji could probably have some secret tricks up his sleeve and manage to make the Benji sweep totally 1000% real again. Anyways, onto blue team, it's a lot more tricky. I'd go for Richard though. Richard is awesome in the Benji scenario when he's in the minority alliance. However, he does have the social skills to get himself out of it. He can get back into the majority. I do think if he were to try that though, he'd fail for the following reasons. Logan has already gotten along with the girls and is an extremely useful social weapon for the coming future. And because of that, he's also in better terms and literally everybody on the team because of all this. Both Ted and Linda can strategize their way out of bad situations, and also to me feel like an amazing villain duo, or at least antagonistic duo heading into the future. Isabel has an idol, and though I do see a world story-wise when Natalia heads out, I can't see it strategically. Her social game is awesome. Nobody, right now anyway, dislikes her in terms of actual people in the game. Anastasia and Marissa, come on. Sort of the same with Ivy and Zay, where they are appearing and therefore can't go yet to complete that. 4 episodes is not enough to show an on-screen love story completely. That leaves Richard, which again is ultimately a lot more shaky, besides Benji, who I'm completely certain, but it makes the most sense given these circumstances. With all of this done for, onto the conclusion.
Interrupting you and Ivy?
What are you talking about?
Come on, man. You know.
Your prediction/analysis for this trailer. Anything you want to see for the coming episode? Would love to read in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for your support and watching this video. Again, any support towards this channel is greatly appreciated. Have an amazing day/night, depending on when you're watching this.